Hey guys, so we are going to talk about our catastrophic events. We'll start with catastrophic events and natural disasters. Today I gave you an assignment last week to kind of see what you knew already. So we're going to go through, talk about what a catastrophic event or natural disaster is, and then we're going to talk about each one of these individually, and then you'll have some questions to answer, and that'll be it for this week. So, first thing, catastrophic event. So, what is that? It's something very harmful or devastating. It causes sudden great damage or suffering. Now, that could mean damage to buildings and things around you in your environment, or it could mean personal damage as well. It could mean loss of life or injury, things like that. These things can also be called a natural disaster. That's what I usually call them, as natural disasters. Some examples are hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, and tornadoes. We're going to talk about those four and many more. So first we're going to start with a flood. So as most of you know, it tends to flood around here because we're pretty flat sometimes. So if it rains quite a bit, the roads flood, and we've even been out of school, I know, once since I've been here for a flood. So a description is an overflow of a large amount of water beyond its normal confines. That means it's more than it usually is. It's in places that it's normally not. So environmental impact, it removes critical sediments. So that means that it can move soil from one place to another where it may have been important in that one place, and then it gets moved in the middle of the road or in your house maybe sometimes. And it causes a temporary decrease in populations. What that means is sometimes people are having to move from one place to another because of these floods. They're not able to stay where they were. Think about Hurricane Katrina. That one, it flooded big time in New Orleans, so people were displaced and they had to move. And a lot of those people have never went back to New Orleans. They just permanently stayed where they were. So next is a hurricane. We don't see hurricanes here, usually. We're not close enough to the ocean. But this description for a hurricane is a storm with violent wind, warm water, low pressure, and revolution. Revolution means it spins. That's what revolution means. So if you see this right here, that's a big old hurricane, and it's got that little eye in the center. Okay, so big hurricane. So environmental impact could be wind damage, flood, and loss of organisms. Organisms could be animals, it could be plants, it could also mean human life for that one. So next one, we're going to talk about earthquake. We've seen this before. We looked at this picture when we were talking about earthquakes before. Remember, we talked about how neat that is, how pretty it is. You can see all the buildings, and then you look over here, and it's pretty much almost complete devastation. So, description of an earthquake: violent shaking of the ground as a result of plate tectonic movement along faults. You already know that. We've already talked about earthquakes. So, environmental impacts: sudden shift in landscape, gas line breaking causing fires, or buildings to fall. You can probably think of many other environmental impacts that can happen during an earthquake. Next is a tsunami. We've also talked a little bit about tsunamis. We know that a tsunami is a long, high sea wave caused by an earthquake in the ocean. We already know that. We've talked about that. So environmental impact, massive flooding. Again, flooding comes up a lot in a lot of these natural disasters. Change in landscape. So think, this giant wave is coming to crash against this pretty beach right here. What's going to happen to all those buildings and stuff? They're going to go away. And then population decrease. This is another one. Everything floods. People have to move because they're displaced, or in a lot of cases in a tsunami, if it's big enough, this one causes a big loss of life. Okay, so this one, people usually can't outrun a tsunami if it's big enough. A meteor. So you may not think of a meteor as a natural disaster, but it is. So this is space debris that enters the Earth's atmosphere. It's called an asteroid if it lands on Earth. Okay, environmental impact. It can cause craters in the Earth, so that means it can cause holes. And if it's large enough, it can cause massive blackout of the sun and destroy ecosystems. Now, that is a big if. Okay, now, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Armageddon, but it's about a giant meteor heading toward Earth, and if they don't stop it, then the Earth's going to be destroyed. If you have, well, you have plenty of time, but you should watch it really if you want to. It's a good movie. But that's a big if here. That's probably something that will never happen in our lifetime. Now, it's a possibility, but it's not very likely. Next thing is a blizzard, something else that we don't see very often around here. So a blizzard is a severe snowstorm with high winds and low visibility. So the farther up north you get, the more likely you are to have a blizzard. We don't get much snow around here. We get more ice than anything. So environmental impact, it could cause death of organisms. Okay, so things could freeze to death. And trees down, knocking the power out. Now, I don't know if you may be too young to remember this, but there was a pretty big ice storm back when I was, I think I was a senior in college. So you may not have even been born yet, but that's a different story. So there was a big ice storm. The power was knocked out for a pretty good while. My parents had to come stay with me in my little one-bedroom apartment because they didn't have lights for a couple weeks, which was crazy. But again, we don't get blizzards a whole lot, but it would be nice to get a little snow every now and then. Next one is a drought. So this is something that we are definitely not going through right now because it's been raining a lot. So a drought is a prolonged period of abnormally low rainfall. Okay, so that means long periods without rain. So environmental impact for this one, loss of plant and animal life, including crops. So if you know somebody who's a farmer, maybe your dad's a farmer, your grandpa's a farmer, this is something that they can't afford. Okay, droughts are not good. It's not good for farmers. It's not good for us. Then we start to lose our ability to grow food and to get food. All right, next one, tornado. So a tornado is a destructive vortex of violent winds. I live in Harrisburg, and as many of you know, last Wednesday night, we had a tornado here in Harrisburg. It destroyed the neighborhood right behind mine. So it was pretty scary for a while here. So environmental impacts, devastating to anything in its path, and possible loss of populations. Again, this is another one. It could be they're displaced, they're having to move because their home was damaged or destroyed by this tornado, or again, possible loss of life in this one. Tornadoes go on a scale from an EF0 to an EF5. EF0 being just pretty high winds, EF5 being it's going to destroy anything in its path. The one in Harrisburg was an EF2. Okay, so it wasn't that big. The one in Jonesboro a few weeks ago was classified as an EF3, EF4, which means it's pretty massive. So if you've had a chance to get out and go to Jonesboro and see all of that destruction that happened, it was massive. And it's kind of hard to believe that nobody got seriously injured or died in either one of those tornadoes the past couple of weeks. But it is tornado season right now, so you need to stay alert and keep up to date on what's happening if it's going to storm, because you never know. Next one, volcano. A mountain with a vent from which lava and ash flow. We've already talked about this one too, so you should know lots about volcanoes. Environmental impact, total devastation of ecosystem touched by lava or ash. So anything that gets touched by that lava, as you know, it's really hot, so it's going to completely destroy anything in its path. You might have a nice forest or a bunch of trees at the bottom of a volcano, and then the volcano erupts, and then there's nothing because all the trees were destroyed by the lava. Last one we're going to talk about is wildfire. So this is fire caused by lightning or by a person in a wooded area. So it can be caused by lightning, so it can be a natural cause. But most of the time, a wildfire is caused by a person. So it's someone who doesn't know what they're doing, out in the middle of the woods trying to start a fire, and then they catch the whole forest on fire. Or it could be something as simple as somebody threw their cigarette out the window, and it caught it on fire. So this can be natural causes or human causes. So environmental impact, short-term devastation to all producers and consumers in the area. We've already talked about producers and consumers. Remember, producers produce their own food, such as plants and trees. Remember, they don't have to go out and find their own food. Consumers are us and animals. We have to go out and find our food. We can't make our own. So that's it for our natural disaster section. You're going to have some questions to answer. You can use this keynote if you need to. You can go back and look and make sure you're getting the questions right. Also, linked in your agenda is you have some guided notes. So as you're listening to me talk to you about this stuff, you can go through and fill out the guided notes. Guided notes are for bonus. They are for bonus. I want to stress that. So you do not have to do them, but they're for bonus points. So they'd be an easy, quick 10 points to tack onto your grade. Especially if you need those 10 points, don't pass up this opportunity. So I'm going to leave this up all week. It'll be due on Friday this week, so I'm going to let you have all week to work on this. You'll have the questions to work on and the guided notes if you choose to do so. Okay, so questions and guided notes. Those are the only two things you'll have to do this week. If you have any questions about anything, just let me know. Email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you need anything else, I'm here for that too. So that's it, and I'll talk to you guys later.